Hey everyone, Tankenstein here. In this video, I'll be reviewing the Su-22M3, a Russian Tier 7 strike aircraft that currently sits at 11.0 BR and is a Squadron vehicle, meaning that it can be unlocked by pretty much anyone, so long as you're in a Squadron. That said, I'll be going over its stats, how it plays, its strengths and weaknesses, and then I'll give my final recommendation on whether if I think that this vehicle is worth purchasing or unlocking or not, especially if there are other Squadron vehicles that you might consider aside from this one. That said, please like, comment, and especially subscribe as I release content like this and more on a regular basis. That said, let's get into the video. So to start, I'll be placing its stats here on the left side. In my opinion, the most important stats to look at are its number of preset armaments, top speed, and its rate of climb. With that out of the way though, let's get into how it plays. Well, to be honest with you guys, it just plays like a strike fighter. If you've ever flown any strike fighter around this BR for the Russians, you might as well be at home with the Su-22M3. Whether it's any variant of the Su-7, the Su-17, or really anything that looks even similar to this plane, it's pretty much that you have a huge engine, can fly it around the speed of sound with a full payload, and can destroy 2 full bases in air RB or a bunch of targets in ground RB. Specific to the Su-22M3, however, is that this plane has a much expanded ordnance capability over any of its aforementioned siblings, boasting up to 6 R-60 missiles, a host of guided anti-ground missiles like the KH-23, KH-25, KH-29, and the S-25L, as well as your standard 500 kilogram bombs, and a host of small unguided rockets. In short, this plane will have the options to satisfy nearly all types of players, whether you like ranged ground kills, to dogfight, or just simple close-in CAS involving dumb bombs and rockets. That's pretty much what this plane is all about. It's like the Su-17M2, but supercharged. In air RB, of course, it will take time to get to the 500 kilogram bombs, but once you get there, you will be able to reach most bases before almost anyone else and will be able to destroy 2 bases in full by evenly splitting your bomb load between those bases, all while speeding back to the base to reload and refuel, taking out enemy bots along the way. Using this method, you can easily get 900 plus point games every single match, which is more or less guaranteed, with any substantial additional points typically being contingent on your team not being crushed by the time you can take off again after rearming at your airfield. Unfortunately, however, in my experience, either my teams have been entirely wiped out by the time I get airborne again, or the enemy team is all dead, leaving me to finish with a respectable, though improvable, score in most matches. This said, I typically score in the top 4 or 5 on my team in every match, with many or most being top 2 or 3, which makes the Su-22M3 an excellent air RB plane, at least when first attacking the enemy before you need to return to the airfield. Additionally, I've actually had massive success in the few matches where I've equipped just the 6 R-60 missiles to start the match and just went to 8,500 meters above sea level behind enemy lines, picking off enemies as I swoop down. Because you have a strike fighter air spawn, you are at a massive advantage in that you have an insane rate of climb and a light payload, and again, you get the air spawn. Though the Su-22M3 is not an agile plane, it isn't the worst dogfighter, and when you combine your missiles, cannons, speed, and an ambush into a single maneuver, you can end up with numerous air-to-air kills in a short period of time, leading to massive scores by using this plane as a dogfighter rather than in its intended role. Watch out though, as it does not have long-range weapons, nor does it have a radar, so you will need to be ever vigilant of where enemy planes are. For ground RB, it's fairly different for 2 main reasons. For one, being that the Su-22M3 is not too maneuverable and only has 12 countermeasures, you will find yourself in a losing fight dodging ground-based player-controlled SPAA, regardless of if it's missile or gun equipped. Secondly, the things that were its primary strength in air RB, namely its speed and ability to carry missiles, aren't nearly as much of a benefit, and when speaking about just the speed, it can also act as a little bit of a detriment in ground RB, at least when not controlled properly. In short though, this plane has a wide array of secondary ordnance in which you can suit any player's needs and will allow most players, should they get through the enemy SPAA net, to gain numerous kills in whatever way suits their fancy at that given time. Following that, you can use your R-60 missiles to help clean up the skies of any enemies, providing nice air cover after you're done with close air support. And now for its strengths and weaknesses. So first and foremost, the max bomb load of 8 500 kilogram bombs is plenty sufficient to destroy 2 full bases, with the 2 R-60s being a bonus that will allow you to knock out at least 2 bot aircraft or even enemy player controlled aircraft, which will give you typically over 1,000 points in the first 2 to 3 minutes of any match. Second, regardless of how many spawn points you have, so long as you have access to some type type of anti-ground ordnance, from rockets to bombs and missiles, you should be able to deal some good damage to the enemy, as all options are perfectly capable at dealing tremendous damage. Third, the Su-22M3 has a ballistics computer for both bombs and rockets. Fourth, it has excellent acceleration and rate of climb, plus the capability to carry up to 6 R60s, which means that the Su-22M3 can easily become an air superiority fighter, as long as you're not forced into high-speed turning fights. Otherwise, as a boom and zoom, it functions excellently in the current meta. Beyond this, it has variable sweep wings that mean that you have greater control over speed and maneuverability if you switch into manual mode, though this can take some practice, as it is another thing that you'll have to be constantly aware of in order to have best wing sweep at any given time. For its 6th strength, the M3 has good cannons that can deal good damage to ground targets and easily wipe out enemy planes. And finally, at least currently, this is one of the most versatile planes in the Russian air tech tree. And now for its weaknesses. First and foremost, it is very fast. However, there are other planes around this BR, especially with advanced missiles, that can easily catch this plane, and because it doesn't have many countermeasures, it is easily destroyed on the return trip home after making your initial bombing runs in Air RB. Now, it does have a good amount of success in returning home, and I'd probably say I make it back around 2/3 of the time, but when compared to planes like the F-105D that are a near given that it will return home after at least the first bombing run, the Su-22M3 does not look quite as good. Again, good, but not great. Secondly, the M3 lacks radar, which is a big deal at this BR. Third, though it has very effective large caliber countermeasures, you only get 12 of them, so you need to use them wisely. For its 4th weakness, though it has decent maneuverability for the type of aircraft that it is still not by any means a maneuverable plane when compared to many of the enemies that it will face. It does, however, have better maneuverability when at minimal wing sleep, although at the cost of speed and acceleration. 5th, it is a very large target, which makes it especially easy for missiles to hit. 6th, it has no long-range missile options, which means that this is a very difficult plane unless you are going way high up in the sky to use as an air superiority fighter. As I've said, I've had tremendous success in this role, but it is fairly limited in that you will not be able to get any long-range kills. You really have to get in close to your enemies with the R60s before you have any chance of killing them. Beyond this, it has a low ammunition total of only 160 rounds, or around 80 rounds per cannon, which means that along with the limited bomb ordnance, you will have a limited time to actually get points before you have to return to base. For its 8th weakness, it has a very limited amount of fuel at its minimum amount of fuel, which means that you will typically likely always have to bring 20 minutes of fuel, especially if you're not just going to strike in Air RB and then just go straight back to base. If you want to do anything else at all, you're going to need that extra fuel. And finally, while not a weakness, it does not have premium SL and RP bonuses, which makes this compare less favorably to premium vehicles if you're considering purchasing the Su-22M3 with GE. And now for my final overview, rating, and recommendation. The Su-22M3 is actually quite the capable aircraft, even at 11.0 BR, at least insofar as the current meta goes. What I specifically mean is that versus its current slate of enemies, such as the F-4Js, some MiG-23s, and other aircraft, it can fare quite well. Not perfectly, but decently considering the type of plane that it is. By no means is it invulnerable, but it has the air spawn and the speed that will allow it to either take out numerous bases in Air RB or climb high enough to launch surprise attacks on enemy aircraft, again from high in the sky. Once new aircraft, such as the F-16, F-14, and other similarly capable planes join the fray, I feel that the M3 is going to be a sitting duck. Otherwise, sans the fact that it is not a premium aircraft, though you can of course attach a talisman to it, which I somewhat, though not entirely recommend, this is a great grinder. Of course, getting 1200 score with this aircraft is not the same as getting 1200 score with the Su-7 BMK, Yak-28, or MiG-21S, as those are all premiums, but for a plane that is accessible to anyone, it can get SL and RP as consistently as any other plane in WarThunder. That consistency is, at least currently, the main strength of this plane. I fear that once longer range or more maneuverable missiles come to game, that the Su-22M3 will go from regularly being able to destroy 2 bases to rarely being able to reach 1, especially if aircraft with those advanced weapon systems get air spawns. Now, for scores, I give the Su-22M3 a 5.5 out of 10 for dogfighting. Owing to its R60s, speed, its good though ammo lacking cannons, and decent maneuverability when manually controlling its wing sweep. For close air support and ground attack, as well as base attack, I give it an 8 out of 10. In a perfect world, this would be a 9 or even a 9.5 out of 10, though unfortunately it cannot make it to its intended target all the time, at least in ground RB, due to enemy SPAA, though if it does, it will wreak havoc on enemy forces, be they air or ground. For grinding, I'll give this plane a solid 7.5 out of 10, with points being given for its great typical minimum score per match in air RB, and with points being taken away due to the fact that it is not a premium and because it sits at 11.0, making return trips after the initial strike very questionable. Whereas a plane like the F-105D, as I mentioned in a previous review, so long as it stays at 9.7 BR, is amazing regardless of the phase of match that you're in. Now with the talisman equipped, I give the Su-22M3 an 8.5 out of 10 for grinding, though it will still only have maximum research efficiency between rank 6 and, when it's released, eventually rank 8. Overall, I give the Su-22M3 a 7 out of 10, as it is extremely versatile, good for grinding, and is just an overall great choice, regardless of your playstyle, although again, it is easy prey for most SPAA and for many of the more advanced planes. While the Su-22M3 is great at both ground RB and in air battles, I would avoid getting this plane first if you don't already have, or at least plan on having, a vehicle that is, at very minimum, the same 9.3 PR as the terms, again for ground RB. If you do not, you will find yourself playing top tier matches with the plane that you will not be able to use often, being that your ground vehicles will be too bad to get any kills, base caps, or even occasional assists. If this is the case and you do not plan on using it at all for air RB, I would strongly suggest that you either unlock the ME-262A1U1, the A4E, the Japanese destroyer Shimakaze, or even the Leopard 2PL before you unlock this, although word to the wise for the Leopard 2PL and even the A4E, you really need to know how to play top tier before you unlock these planes, especially again with the Su-22M3. Now if you're looking for an excellent grinder in air RB, or if you like air AB however, and especially if you want to put a talisman on it, the Su-22M3 fits the bill and then some. So should you buy it? Well, as stated before, if you either have the ground lineup to properly support it, or if you want to play a ton of air matches with it, you can't find a better squadron vehicle currently in game in which you'll be able to absolutely annihilate the endless grind that is WarThunder. So yes, buy it unless you're a ground RB player with no top tier ground RB vehicles. Simple as that. That being said though, thank you all so much for watching. Please, as always, like, comment, subscribe, and let me know what you guys think about this video and the Su-22M3 in the comments below. I really want to see your opinions. And aside from that, again, thank you. I know I say it 1.5 million times, but I do truly mean it. Thank you so much. And I will see you all on the other side. Take care, everyone.